Welcome to a quick chat about your research assignment, which is worth 200 points in your final grade for statistics. So I wanted to share two papers with you, which were papers from previous semester. So this first paper is on mumps and measles. So to go through what this assignment should look like, the first page should be your cover page for the assignment. The second page should be about 100 to 125 word abstract of your paper. So that's probably one of the last things that you would be constructing would be your abstract. Once you've got your entire paper done, you need to condense it down. In chapter 1, you would be discussing the introduction. So in this particular paper, they talked about mumps and measles. They looked at definitions of them, treatments, that kind of thing, just to let the user know what is already known at this point about mumps and measles. As you get to the end of chapter 1, you should be talking about your research assignment, so exactly, or your research questions, exactly what you are looking to answer. So you'll see this one is their correlation between the number of cases of mumps compared to the number of cases of measles from 2009 to 2019 was that research question. And even a statement of the null hypothesis is there's no correlation between that, and the alternative would be that there is a correlation. Chapter 2 of the research assignment is the review of the literature. So I would say this is probably going to be your longest chapter, where you are going through and researching what has already been researched by other researchers about whatever your topic is. So again, this is a chapter that you're doing a lot of summarization of research that's already out there. Chapter 3 is your research methods. So it would be, how are you collecting your data? This particular student was able to find raw data, and here was the website that she got that raw data from, so she did not have to collect it. So as we continue through chapter 3, since she is collecting data that's already been organized in some way, then she had to discuss the CDC, what it does, what its mission is. As we continue on through, there was a definition of keywords like healthcare providers and travelers, because we know mumps and measles are spread many times through people traveling that may or may not know that they are infected. So as we continue on in chapters 4 and 5, this is where you're putting that research together. So if you have not completed all the work associated with chapter 10, you need to stop the video now and wait and watch this video after chapter 10 has been complete, because otherwise you're not going to understand this. So what the student has done is took that research they were able to find on the CDC's website about the number of cases of measles compared to the number of cases of mumps. In chapter 10, you learn about doing x times y, x squared, and y squared, and all the summations that come along with that. So once we were through that, then we went to doing scatter plots with mumps and measles. Once we were through the scatter plot, we are then moving into linear correlation coefficient. So here's your formula for R. Given the information she was able to find on mumps and measles, here are all those calculations. We got an R value of negative 0.3782. So once you get through these calculations, it is very nice to write a paragraph or so saying exactly what these calculations mean. She next calculated the t-value. Again, what does it mean? Done the hypotheses, drew the curve, made the decision to reject the null hypothesis, so there is a correlation between mumps and measles. Next, we moved into a linear regression line. So there's the formula and the calculations. R squared calculation. An example of using that linear formula. So if we know that we're going to have X cases of measles, so 200 is what they used here, they were able to figure out that there would be 2,330 cases of mumps predicted. And then the reference page should be in APA's format. It does need to be left aligned with the hanging indent. So I wanted to show you another example paper as well. This was an example paper of a person that collected the raw data themselves. So this particular student looked at caffeine intake in test grades. So to go through her 5 chapters. Again, we started off with the title page. We moved into a very quick summarization of this as the abstract. Chapter 1 would be an introduction. So we're introducing caffeine, how it's used, what it does to the body. We have got a nice chart with different foods and beverages that are consumed with caffeine, and also serving size and caffeine amount in milligrams. And then we move into that last part of chapter 1, research questions. So this particular research looked at, is there a correlation between the ounces of caffeinated beverage and then the grade that these students get when they take a quiz or a test in biology 142, anatomy and physiology, and they were specifically looking at the reproductive system of humans. So chapter 2 is looking at the research that has already been done related to caffeine and its effect on the body. So this will be found in those research articles. Chapter 3 was the research of the participants. So they talked about the class, talked about the teacher. It was a teacher-made test. How many males, how many females, the ethnicity of each, how the tests were composed. Chapter 4 was going through the calculation. So here was our XY chart, our scatter plot, our columns of x times y, x squared and y squared with correlating summations. The R formula and R value, what it suggests, that there is a weak positive linear relationship. The null and alternative hypotheses. Our standard normal curve here with the rejection and do not rejection region already labeled. Our T calculation, how that helps us make that decision about the hypotheses, whether we will reject it or not. Calculating the A value, calculating the B value. Making that decision if there are 18 ounces of caffeinated beverage consumed, ideally what their grade would be when they take that quiz or their test. The S estimate and what that means, X bar. They've even done the prediction interval to say that they are 98% sure that when it comes to consuming these caffeinated beverages at a particular value, what those test grades will range from, and then a wrap-up of the conclusion. We'll finish up that paper going through the references. This is what your reference page should look like. In the most ideal situation, it would be here with an article like Sherman. You would have the author's last name, comma, first initial, middle initial, and if there are more authors to that paper, you would write it in that way. Normally, you just write the year of publication in parentheses. You would have the name, where it was retrieved from, journal articles, digital object identifiers. So any APA website, I would suggest the Purdue OWL, I think is pretty good at helping you come up with these exact references. But again, this is what your reference page should look like. But more importantly, certainly your paper is not going to look like what we have just looked at here. Your paper is going to be very unique to you. So I have requested that you send me your research questions. Moreover, I would highly encourage you to reach out to me so that we can outline what each of your chapters needs to look like, since for the most part, this is probably the first very lengthy paper that you have had to conduct the research and write it up from start to finish. So when you're at the point of doing your research assignment, if you'll please email me at christy.carter@southside.edu, I will help you outline those 5 chapters. But I look forward to seeing your final assignment and you putting all the work that we have learned throughout the semester into something that's very much so your own. So I look forward to seeing this final research.